Are you on your own or close to it and you're struggling with frugal living? Well, I have 5 frugal living habits that will change your life. I know this because these 5 habits changed my life. Let's do this. Welcome, I'm Amy, and here at the Frugal Diaries, I give you tips and tools for frugal living. So let's talk about these 5 habits. Number 1, get in the habit of asking yourself, where am I right now? The word that you want to use here for this habit is the word context. What is the context in which you live? And I'm going to ask you to start out really far. Imagine, if you will, that you are up on the space station and you are looking down at Earth. That's how far away I want you to get to start looking at your context. What's going on with planet Earth right now? You probably had 2 or 3 things that pop to your mind that are most important in your context that are going on in planet Earth right now. Then get a little bit closer in what's going on in your hemisphere of the world, and then what's going on in your country, what's going on in your community. And then you can start looking at the context of your own life. So to give an example, I am a frugal person on the space station. I am looking down at Earth. It feels like everybody just wants short-term profits, short-term gains, short-term pleasures, and nobody's thinking frugally. Nobody's thinking intentionally about what they're doing with their lives. I'm being a little bit over dramatic right now, but this is what I want you to do, is look as broadly as you can at the context in which you live. And then look at the part of the world that you live in. My part of the world is particularly affected by short-term profits and short-term gains, and my community as well. And then in my household, what is my context with regard to frugal living and the short-term profit mentality of my surroundings? Well, for me, the context is that it affects me so much that it makes me sometimes feel like living frugally is not the right choice, and that I should just go wild and spend all the money that I have. Now, this is not the entire context. I've just picked one example of something. You're probably thinking, well, that's not my context. Absolutely, I'm not asking that you think of your context as my context, but think about where you are right now. If you were up on the space station, looking down at Earth as a frugal person, and particularly if you're alone, if you live in a small household of 1, maybe even 2 people, what is the context that you live in right now? Now let's bring it back to Earth here, because that can be a little bit overwhelming and possibly a little bit depressing, because there's a lot going on in the world, and that affects the way that you live in your house and the choices that you make as one individual. But that's not where we stop. The second habit that you need to get into is asking yourself, what do I think about and how do I feel about where I am right now? The word that we're using here for this habit is mindset. This is where we go inside and say, what do I think about where I am? How do I feel about where I am? So in the example that I've given from my life, in looking down at Earth from the space station in my mind, I just felt alone almost immediately. But it's important to identify that and separate the context in which I live, which is that a lot of people want short-term profits and short-term gains, and there may be relatively fewer people talking about living frugally. How do I feel about that? I feel alone. I feel like I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. I feel concerned. I feel confused. I feel hesitant to even talk about these things. How do I think about it? I don't really know, because I'm so feeling alone, so feeling confused. And you see how these two, looking at our context and then looking at our mindset around our context, these things really go together. Because imagine this, looking down at Earth from the space station and saying, well, everybody is looking at short-term profits and short-term gains. Here's my opportunity. I love to live frugally. I'd like to teach the world to live frugally in every single day. What if that were my mindset? So if I can identify my mindset, I'm feeling alone, I'm feeling concerned, I'm feeling confused, then I have the opportunity to say, do I want this to be my mindset? I could shift to a different mindset and say, let's find all the frugal people out there, let's make a community, and let's talk together about how to be frugal. That could be my mindset. And my mindset could be one of, let's change the world. Do you see how in an instant of just thinking about your mindset, you can go from pain to possibility? It's a wonderful habit to get into, particularly if you are on your own. Those of us who spend a lot of time alone can get really into our heads without being aware that we're getting into our heads. And what I mean by that is that we can get really concerned, really confused, really lonely, really alone feeling, and we forget there's a whole world out there waiting to be reached out to. There's a whole world of people waiting to support. This is just one example of how I can answer the question of how do I feel about where I am, about my context, what's my mindset, and then I could shift it if I want to, or I might be proud of it and ready to move on to the next one. By the way, if you're getting value out of this video so far, I would love it if you would give it a like and consider subscribing. Hit that notification bell so you'll get notified first of new videos. If you would like to contribute to the growth of the channel, click the link below for Buy Me a Coffee, where you can make a one-time contribution or you can become a monthly member. Now let's get back to these 5 habits, because number 3 is the habit of asking yourself, where do I want to go? Where do I want to be next? The word that we're using for this habit is goals. Remember that we have already talked about our context, where am I? And then we have talked about our mindset. How do I feel about, how do I think about where I am? And we've talked about the possibility of actually changing that mindset. Changing the context might be a little trickier, but changing the mindset might be possible. And that helps us then to look at, where do I want to be? Where do I want to be today at the end of the day? Where do I want to be tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, by the end of my life? You can think about this all by yourself as a process of daydreaming. Some people love to journal about this. I love to go for walks and think about my future. I love to think about where I'd like to be. I love to be out in nature thinking about where I want to be. And you know what? Let's actually look to Goldie here. This isn't exactly a Goldie's Frugal Diary, I have to confess, because golden retrievers, they don't necessarily think ahead. But look at the way Goldie thinks about her life. She thinks about it as a way to seek peace and comfort and enjoyment and rest, and that's her goal. Now, she doesn't have any larger goals like saving for retirement. That's not part of her world. But what is part of your world where you could seek, as part of the goals that you have, comfort, rest, peace, enjoyment, pleasure, wonderful food? Golden retrievers love food, so you can too. Think about what your goals are and include in there the things that you most enjoy. In my example, I have spent some time up on the space station looking at where I am, and I've seen short-term profits, short-term gains being the priority for the planet. My mindset, I've been feeling kind of lonely. I sit here alone a lot of the time. I'm alone in my head, and I've had to kind of shift my mindset and say, wait, maybe I could reach out to other people who feel like I do, and we could be together and not be alone in frugal living. My goal is, I would like to make a community of people who live frugally. Now, I've started that with this YouTube channel, and I have some bigger plans coming up. If you're watching this in real time, I'm actually running my first frugal living class, and we're having a great time. Some of you have said that you'd like to be part of a frugal living class, but you can't right now for a variety of reasons. No worries, we're going to do this again. And there are lots of ways to find community. If that's my goal, and indeed it is for frugal living, finding community is absolutely possible, and I can make that a goal, and it's okay. You probably have a goal that you're thinking of that you're like, you know what, just stop talking, I need to think about my goals. Do it. Pause the video and think about your goals, write them down, go take that walk. I'll be here when you get back. Think about where you want to be next and in the future. And it's okay right now to just blue sky it. Think about all of the dreams that you have to make your life joyful, intentional, and frugal, and set those goals. Habit number 4, get in the habit of asking yourself, what routines can I get into in order to achieve my goals? I talk about this one a lot. I love to make my coffee at home. It's a daily routine that I have so that I don't get into the daily routine of going to the coffee shop and spending as much money as I used to. If you're new here, you may not have heard that I used to spend over $200 a month just at a single coffee shop. And now I don't do that. I still go to that coffee shop for treats. I use my Fetch rewards, and I have a line item in my budget for treats. And I love when I go to the coffee shop because it's not a drain on my finances. And that daily routine helps me to achieve my goal of frugal living. Does this bring me to that goal of frugal living community? Yeah, it does. Because how many times have we talked right here on this channel in the comments, detailed sharing about your favorite coffee making at home routine. In fact, go down in the comments below and tell me, what is your favorite coffee making or tea making or kombucha making, whatever it is that you like to make and drink. Tell me about it below in the comments and just get as detailed as you want to. Give me recipes, tell me what time of day you like to drink your coffee or your beverage of choice. Where do you sit? Are you by yourself or do you have somebody else in the house with you? I love to make my coffee in the morning after I have come back from my walk, after I've given Goldie her snack. She gets her treat first, and then I make my coffee and I sit down and I read a book, because I love to take a little bit of a break after just getting up and getting around and doing my first routines of the morning. It's wonderful. And I used to feel very hectic in the mornings because I felt like I had to get to that coffee shop, and the drive to the coffee shop and the waiting in line at the coffee shop and all of the noise of the coffee shop made me feel worse. It made me feel more anxious. It made me feel like I was totally tied into that world of short-term profits and short-term pleasure. And it didn't help me feel connected to anybody at all, even though they remembered my order and they were lovely. I appreciate that. But I didn't feel connected to people. And now I can connect to people because I can connect to myself first in the morning. And it seems like such a small thing. But the day that I bought this mug, and when I got my coffee maker and I got everything set up, my life changed. It was very simple. It's a simple routine. What is your simple routine that helps you every day? And related to this, we have habit number 5, which is ask yourself, what tips do I need in order to complete my routines so that I can achieve my goals? We're breaking it down smaller and smaller and smaller. Think of a tip as a simple daily thing that you can do. For instance, in my Ode to Coffee Drinking at Home, I talked about several tips. One was I went and got a special mug, and I actually got this at the Goodwill. Don't you love it? It's like my favorite thing in my whole house. I love it so much. Another tip is that I bought myself an espresso maker. I like espresso more than I like drip coffee. And so I looked at the prices, I spent time reviewing, and I saved up some money, and I got an espresso maker. It's probably one of the world's smallest and least efficient espresso makers, but it does make espresso, and I've had it for years. It has never given me a moment's trouble. And then along with that, I discovered what kinds of coffees I like and when they go on sale so that I can buy them. Another tip is I store my coffee in the freezer until I get ready to start using it on a regular basis. That way I can buy in bulk. Do you see how many tips I've come up with in talking about that one little routine? You could make a series of tips around how you journal for your goals. For instance, I go and I get a certain kind of pen. I like a certain kind of bullet journal. I sit at my desk in a certain way. I use this chair. Those are all tips, the tiny little things that we do to get us to those routines that help us to achieve our goals, that help us improve our mindset, and that help us change our context. Yes, you are one person, and I am one person. You may live alone or with roommates or just one other person, and you may feel quite alone. But if you look at these 5 habits, they will change your life, and you will not feel alone. You will feel connected to a group of people who love frugal living just as much as you do. I just started my frugal living journey a few years ago, really, and I felt very alone. I was alone in my house with 2 kids, a dog, a cat, and a hamster, which means I was always alone and never alone. And I didn't know if I could ever find community. And what I discovered was that in the simple act of reaching out, I created a YouTube channel just like we used to create blogs back in the old days, just to talk about my struggles and my joys. And I discovered through that act of reaching out to find friends through YouTube that I was able to start reaching my goals. I stopped going to that coffee shop. I saved a couple $100s a month almost right away, just because I had 25 or 30 people helping me out and talking to me about money and finances and frugal living. Please know that while it's easy to feel alone, and that can increase our fear about our finances and our frugal lives, it's so important that we have support. And I want you to know that in whatever way I can be, I am here for you. And if you jump down in the comments and ask a question, people will help. And if you want to contribute ideas, some of you love to get into the comments and give lists of your favorite frugal tips. It's such a wonderful sharing experience. And I have learned so much from you and I thank you. In fact, I have a Valentine. If you're watching this in real time, you know that it's right around Valentine's Day. For all the hearts you bless, for all the lives you touch, wishing you a very happy Valentine's Day. I'd like to end today with one of my favorite quotes of all time. Bola Sokunbi of the wonderful website Clever Girl Finance, please check her out, says this: frugal living is the act of being very intentional with your spending. It's that simple. She really breaks it down. Think, think, think. Intentional is all about thinking. And these 5 habits will help you not just think about your life, but change your life. So wherever you are on your frugal living journey, take that next step, whatever that next step is for you, and know that you are not alone. And I am so proud of you. Live frugally, change your life, and together we will change the world. I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye-bye.